Good morning, people from around the world. I thought I'd see what's happening here in the world and let y'all know what's happening in the world as well. Yes, it's the World Edition right here on Pod TV. I'm going to be doing some of the hosting today. Hopefully, Nick Palveda and others will be joining me as well. Of course, we're going to try to keep this ship running until Wednesday. We do know that Thursday is Thanksgiving, and a lot of folks are out there doing their Thanksgiving shopping and getting ready to prepare to be with family and friends. Hopefully, this will be a Thanksgiving that they can actually be among their folks and enjoying the company of their family. Even though a lot of folks are still paying attention to what's going on with the COVID situation. As a matter of fact, White House health officials are set to announce later today that 95% of the federal workforce is in compliance with the Biden administration's vaccine mandate, according to a senior administration official. Over 90% of the workers have received at least one dose, and the other 5% have submitted exception applications that were already approved or that were pending. More than 90% of those employees have received at least one dose of a COVID 19 vaccine, the official added, with the vast majority of that figure having received two shots. The announcement, which will be made during the COVID-19 briefing that'll be held later today, comes as the vaccine mandate for federal workers is set to go into effect by the end of Monday. Reuters was the first to report on the vaccination rate. By the deadline for the vaccination requirement, the Biden administration will have already achieved 95% compliance across the federal government, meaning employees with at least their first vaccination dose or those with a pending or approved exception or extension request, according to the official. More than 90% of those employees will have had at least one shot, with the vast majority of those employees being fully vaccinated. One source familiar with the data said the compliance figures have exceeded the administration's expectations. With more compliance submissions expected to come on Monday, federal departments and agencies will further process and review information and documentation regarding vaccination in the coming days, the official said. And agencies will provide an education and counseling process for those who have not complied or those who do not have a pending or approved exception or extension request. Additional enforcement steps could be taken over time if needed. The Office of Management and Budget will release a summary chart of agency data regarding compliance on Wednesday morning, according to the official. Earlier this year, Biden imposed stringent new vaccine rules on federal workers, large employers, and healthcare staff in an attempt to contain the latest surge of COVID 19, particularly after the emergence of the highly transmissible Delta variant. Biden directed the Labor Department to require all businesses with 100 or more employees ensure their workers are either vaccinated or tested once a week. 84 million workers would be covered by the rules, which are scheduled to fully take effect on January 4th. So immediately after being announced, the mandate came under challenge from Republican-led states and some private employers who say the administration overstepped its authority on issuing such a rule. As a matter of fact, was talking to a guest not that long ago, and they were actually wondering how this kind of mandates play into HIPAA rules and things along those lines. So hopefully we'll have some lawyers, maybe Nick or others, that can tell me what their thoughts are in regards to that, because we never know what folks' thoughts are in regards to some of these very complex legal issues that are also involved within the mandate situation and all of that. And by the way, it does look like closing arguments are taking place in the trial over Ahmaud Arbery. So there are closing remarks taking place in that trial. And of course, a lot of people after the Kyle Rittenhouse case will be paying close attention to how that particular case goes as well. I know we had a lawyer on a lively discussion on last night about the Rittenhouse case, and they were actually saying that they felt that the verdict was fair in the Rittenhouse case in the sense of the acquittal, but they also expect guilty verdicts in the Arbery case. So we're going to see if this is the way it plays out or if it plays out differently, because a lot of folks will be watching and paying attention to that as well. So that is some of the news that is going on. I'm sure there's lots of other news happening as well. So we're going to see what we can find out about other news happening around the country and the world. As a matter of fact, we had one example where some people on that argument were talking about gun rights and how there may be a parallel to the right for people to have automobiles, and sometimes tragedy can happen with both of those things. And apparently, there was a tragedy involving a vehicle yesterday in Wisconsin. So that's a very dear place to me, having gone to school at Marquette University. Shout out to Marquette, 5-1 in basketball, and I'm very proud of that. Even though we did lose to Saint Bonaventure, but we did manage to take a win against West Virginia. Sorry about that, Steve. Yes, we did manage to beat that team from your state. So not really sorry, but I'll claim like I'm sorry and all of that. But coming back to the more serious news, officials said dozens of people were struck after the vehicle sped down the street during the Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is near Milwaukee. It was supposed to be a celebratory night in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Dance groups and high school bands and politicians were marching along Main Street in the Milwaukee suburbs Christmas parade, which was returning from a pandemic hiatus. Then, just before 4:40 p.m., the driver of a red SUV stormed past barricades and barreled through the crowd, striking dozens. At least 5 people were killed and more than 40 people were injured, and the numbers could change. City authorities said in a statement late Sunday, area hospitals reported treating dozens of patients, including many children. It was unclear what might have motivated the episode. Today, our community faced horror and tragedy in what should have been a community celebration, said Mayor Sean Rowley, who described seeing smiling children and happy parents when he marched along the parade route before the incident. I'm deeply saddened to know that so many in our community went to a parade but ended up dealing with injury and heartache. Chief Daniel Thompson of the Waukesha Police Department said on Sunday night that a person of interest was in custody and that there was no further threat. Eyewitnesses described the driver as male, but that was not confirmed by the police. Chief Thompson said shots were fired by the police at the driver. A spokesman for Children's Wisconsin said that the hospital, which treats only pediatric patients, had admitted 15 people on Sunday. Details about the condition were not immediately available, and so a lot of people are paying attention to that as well. Another hospital, Aurora Medical Center Summit, said in a statement that it was treating 13 patients, including 3 in critical conditions. Officials at Fart Hospital said that they had also received patients, but did not specify how many. So the tragedy spoiled what participants and onlookers described as a joyous night in Waukesha, a bedroom community about 20 miles west of Milwaukee. More than 60 entries from the Waukesha Fire Department to the Old Car Club to Santa were scheduled to march through downtown. This was the 58th Christmas parade for Waukesha, an annual event that was canceled last year because of the pandemic. The theme of this year's event was simply comfort and joy. So that was a tragedy that happened there in Wisconsin. And that was some of the things that were taking place in that particular case as well. I do see that the big boss is here. So we're going to bring him up and see what he's got to say, as well as I was talking about some things going on in the world. And we'll see if anybody else shows up as well. But definitely, Nick, glad to see you here. I was talking just really quickly about the vaccine mandates. Apparently, the federal government and the Biden administration is happy that they're going to get 95% or something like that compliance by folks that work in the federal government. And they are also, of course, pushing the big business to do similar things and all of that. And I know yesterday when we were talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, there was a parallel made between guns and somebody having a vehicle and doing harm with a vehicle. And I just happened to look at the news and saw that over the weekend, that's exactly what happened. Somebody barreled through a Christmas parade and all of that. I don't know that it was a malicious attack. I have not heard anything along those lines. It could have even been, speeding accident or some other kind of things, but they were trying to have a celebratory event and everything. And by the way, Nick, you may not know this, but when Durham brought the Christmas parade back for the first time, I want to say it was in either the late 90s or the early 2000s, I was actually part of the team that brought that here to Durham. It was actually done through um, Phyllis Coley, and at that time, I believe that she has the Spectacular magazine, but at that time, I believe she was working with the another magazine that is here as well, and they were kind of the spearheads behind bringing it back after it had had a hiatus here as well. And I don't think that had anything to do with any tragedies, unlike the pandemic, and why people have not had Christmas parades recently. But we were just glad to bring it back eventually. Departments within the city took it over, and I think that they're the ones that still run the holiday event. But somewhere, and I have to bring one up into the um, platform here so I can post it at some time or another. But I had a picture of me out in the December weather, definitely checking out the parade, helping organize the parade because I was one of the organizers of that, and I had never organized a parade before. I think I organized a few more with Phyllis after that, so we might have done about 2 or 3 of those Christmas parades. We did some MLK parades, and we did some other type of parades. But I'm an event planner, and that was my first time dabbling in parades. And I can tell you that parade organizing is not easy because you got to worry about the spacing. You got to worry that you don't have certain kind of groups in front of certain kind of groups, and it is not an easy thing to do. And of course, people don't like those large gaps if they're in a parade either. So it was just an interesting thing to happen in that sense and everything. So definitely parades do mean a lot to folks during the holiday time. We know we're getting ready to go into the football bowl season, not that far away. And of course, there'll be a lot of those big parades like the Rose Bowl parade. And I think Macy's still might have its parades. And there are a lot of people that are really going to get into that parade spirit. As a matter of fact, I think Raleigh has its parade coming up this weekend, if I'm thinking.
Or it already had it. I think they already had their Christmas parade, but this is a big problem for event planners because the thing is, how do you plan around this? Right. Car ran over 40 people in the parade in the United States of America. The car just came through and just bowled over a bunch of people. 5 already died, and who knows how many deaths will occur. And also, if you're an event planner, Mark, how do you stop it? In other words, they ran through the barricades, just ran over people randomly. It didn't look like a terrorist act because it wasn't coordinated with anything else, but it could be. In other words, people don't know what it could be. Some wacko. It could be whatever. Okay. But what it does, it certainly puts a chilling effect on wanting to go to a parade or march down a parade, when you don't know if a car is just going to cream through the barricades and just run over a bunch of people. And of course it gives the gun advocates another reason. Hey, we shouldn't ban guns. Look, cars kill people too. And what you need to do is mitigate these problems as much as you can. Although, if you ask me, how do you actually do that? Right. I'm not really sure. In Washington, D.C., though, when I was there and they had their events, they had National Guard with barricades which cars ain't going to get through. I'm serious. In other words, D.C., when they held events, they knew how to lock down the city. Okay, but that's Washington, D.C. with big American budgets. Now you go to Wisconsin, a tiny town in Wisconsin. They don't have those budgets. They don't have those barricades. They don't have the National Guard, which they call out. So how do little cities do parades, Mark? I mean, how's Durham going to do a parade?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. I've got to check with my friends to see if they're even having one this year. I've actually not seen any plans yet as to whether it will take place or not. But you're right. I mean, that's going to be a big question as to how those things will be planned and how you're going to deal with it. I know that the last time they did the parade, it was definitely in the downtown area. And, if somebody was having that kind of mindset, whether they were a terrorist or whether it was just some, as you said, person that was having some issues, maybe around their mental health or something like that. How can they even protect against it and things along those lines? And when parades, of course, are supposed to be, like the article said, very celebratory. And of course, people that go to parades are usually there, to have that very fun spirit and, to get the chance to see Santa and everything along those lines. Speaking of Santa made an appearance on this past weekend. Shaquille may not like this because, it's one of them cases of people that are trying to have identity, and some
Do
people
they
would
have
call it
Santas in
identity
Australia?
politics, but we had Black Santa. So Black Santa was at the Hayti this past weekend, and he will be there, I think, several dates in the middle of December. But he did make an appearance, and several of their kids and parents did come by to get their pictures with Santa to definitely make their Christmas wishes. I'm sure
Yeah,
many of the wishes were around COVID and hoping that
yeah.
their parents and everybody else can get back to work and back to normal situations. While a lot of folks might also be wishing for the latest video game and or the latest phone and technology
Right.
so they can stay in touch with the world and everything. But yes, for another year, I remember he was there last year and he was back again this year. But when I was talking to the person that puts together that event, Stafford Braxton, he was saying that, and he also does it, supplies the Santas for some of the malls around the area as well. And he was saying that actually the amount of numbers he's getting is, of course, down. They're not doing as many days as they've done in the past at Hayti. The malls are not having maybe as much of the time as well. And he really said that the churches are really being impacted because a lot of the churches that he deals with, which are Baptist churches, are not necessarily even open. They're open in terms of providing services, but the services are being done online. They're not being done in the building, or in some cases, if they're done in the buildings, because I've talked to some other friends of mine that are pastors, they're spacing people out. So, they're trying to make sure that they're following those rules and regulations as well. And one church, I need to check with Christ Central, but they were actually doing their service outside, and I'm not sure if they've gone into the building that they moved from Hayti to, because we were out of business for a while. I mean, we're now doing events. Poetry Slam was held this weekend, and other events are being held. But this is definitely still impacting our economy, which is kind of where I was going with this, Nick, because even as I was reading an article, I don't know whether you have any pets, but and like a dog or a cat or
Yeah, I do.
anything, but Morris might be a little upset if you have a cat, because apparently pet food is at a little bit of a supply shortage and all of that. And part of this is the supply chain, the shortage of aluminum, shortage of workers, a number of other things. And there's some other products like Gatorade and I think some chips that are also being impacted as well. And it varies from state to state, region to region and everything. But apparently there's a serious shortage of pet food. So Morris and all of those can be upset. And part of it is that, certain animals are finicky and they might only like a certain flavor, or they might only like, they might have health issues as well. And that's for both dogs, cats, birds, whatever kind of a pet that you have and everything. But the surprising fact that I did not realize was because of the pandemic, and of course, a lot of people were sitting at home and they were lonely. The other reason that this is becoming more of a concern is there was an increase in pet adoptions. I've said on this show several times, and some of the other shows, I've been thinking about getting a pet, but apparently there was a real big bump in pet adoption. So when you adopted Morris, he was glad that he have a home, but he might not be all that happy that he doesn't have any food.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, there's another issue that, okay, Gabe Leal comes up. The kids had a picture with Black Santa past few years before COVID. So the thing is, there's interesting thing. And then we have another one, Meow. I actually do have a dog, and the thing is, my dog is always with me. Matter of fact, she's right next door. But as they say, God is dog spelled backwards, or dog is God spelled backwards. So I carry God right next to me. She thinks she is, but she's just a little dog. Okay, but the thing is, interesting thing that we have here is the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Yes.
We discussed it yesterday, and like I said, this thing does beam through LinkedIn, but LinkedIn did not shut down my last one. I keep watching it, but they did. We did do a very interesting survey, so I got part of the poll in it. It had 1,975 people polled this. That let Kyle go was 82%. No was 18%. Now realize whenever you do polling, you're doing it into a group that
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate, because I'm going into LinkedIn group. So it's
Right.
for people that are LinkedIn. It's not distributed through all the communities out there. It's just one demographic group. But there were over 55,867 people that followed the polls. And then I asked another poll, should this even we talk about Kyle Rittenhouse on LinkedIn? And very interesting, we had 32% the debate should be banned on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Okay, which I found very interesting. And here's even worse: 14% said you shouldn't debate it at all. In other words, let's not even talk about it. Things will go away if you just don't talk about it, which I'm not sure if that's true. Sasha's emailed me and says he can't get in because he doesn't have the right link. I thought I sent it to him.
I thought you
Are
sent
you?
it to him too, and I'm trying to send it to him as well
Yeah,
because I just saw that. So, or maybe you can
right.
send it to him, but
Yeah, I tried again, but apparently I have the wrong link, which I don't know how I did that. So
we
I'd
will
have to
see
go
what we can
find.
do. I'll go down to the bottom and we'll see if we
Okay.
can
All right. Yeah.
correct that situation really
All right.
quickly and everything.
Okay.
But you were talking about the poll and everything, and I saw that you had posted another one, and I was
I
wondering
did.
because I did wonder because that is also another controversial topic if that one had been taken down because or is it
Yeah, that's a
still
good
up?
question. I follow on social media what gets struck down. This is the first time I've had anything struck down on LinkedIn. And let me see if this poll is still running. The poll was supposed to run a week, but it
Right.
did not. It looks okay. They're doing the Medicare poll. I did a poll on American Medicare because I was curious about. I think it's important people know that Medicare is to run out of money in 2026, and our Congress people aren't looking at that at all. So it's not too good. Okay, here we go. Now this one didn't get as many votes. Should it even be debated? It looks like it's still up there. That 2,200 people viewed. The results are this. Should Kyle Rittenhouse debated? Should be debate be allowed? Um, well, 58% said yes, 18% said no, and 24% should be banned on LinkedIn. So it's kind of interesting to see these results that take place because you know there's a group that says debate should be banned. Now here's the logic behind banning debates on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is supposed to be a business site,
Right.
and the real question is the Kyle Rittenhouse case business. Well, to me, it's also a legal issue.
Right.
And so the thing is, I thought a legal issue should be on LinkedIn, but realize that that social media hasn't fully developed yet. So
Hmm.
there's no real LinkedIn site for legal issues. It just
Right.
doesn't exist right now, Mark. So the thing is, it's an area that could be developed, but just really doesn't exist. There have been a couple that have tried political sites, but they just haven't gone too far, like Parler,
Parler.
and they got killed because the powers that be on media, I think it was Apple in this particular case, just shut them down, and that's where they were receiving most of their distribution from, which is which, like I said, is pretty interesting. We're very fortunate we distribute the multiple lines, so even if LinkedIn doesn't shut us down, Twitch. Right now, we're not running on Twitch. Also, this is kind of
Apparently,
interesting.
Twitch
I don't
and
know what happened.
Twitter have been having some issues because I know that when we did the Black Business Olympics / Expo, I did
Yeah.
notice that both Twitter and Twitch would pop off and on. So apparently, they're having some issues with their technology, things of that nature. So it is not on our end. I don't think it has anything to do with banning because in their case, Twitch has all kinds of interesting programming, including some scantily clad women telling videos and other kinds of products. So I don't think it has much to do with an attempt to ban by Twitch. I'm actually thinking that they just might have some glitches in their system. And I'm thinking probably the same with Twitter because I see that it's going on the Twitter account that we're using for this, which ironically is yours. But I know when we tried it on mine with the Olympics, we were having some issues and things of that nature. And I haven't tried today to do anything. So it'll be interesting. I told you that I was going to do a pre-record. So I did do the guest for the radio show earlier last night. And guess what? She is a person that comes from what some people might consider the progressive side. Some people may say left or whatever terms you want to use and things of that nature. Very much engaged, a Greek American, I think first or second generation, but she was definitely involved in the unions, involved in I want to say maybe migrant rights, but definitely Native American rights and things of that nature. And yes, she was also not a big fan of mass media and all of that. She actually gave a very scathing attack on them that I'm hoping that you'll watch this show and hear because she definitely talked about how she is very frustrated by the fourth estate, which is what media is supposed to be in
Yeah.
terms of mainstream media. So she was very frustrated by some of the things that were going on. When she's dealing with issues, and like I said, she's a union rep there in the school system as well. So, like I said, there has been some things, including some things that you and her may not agree on, because she was actually bringing up a question of privacy. Because, like I said, she is not a big time vaccine person, and she explained some of the reasons that she
Mhm.
has in that, including a book that apparently one of the Kennedys has written that talks about maybe a little bit of the history and things around that, around Fauci. And she did bring that
Yeah.
up, and some of the other things that she's got going on in her space. But she did mention the whole thing around HIPAA laws, and that
Yeah.
is seeming like a very valid point. And as a
Yeah.
lawyer, what are your thoughts about this? Because one of the things you were saying is that if people are having to produce a vaccine card and show that they have
Mhm.
been vaccinated,
Right.
doesn't that go against the privacy rules, which is what the HIPAA laws are supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, there can be some arguments, but I mean, this goes back to that old Supreme Court case, Jacobson versus Massachusetts. Now, that's a 1905 case, but that's when smallpox was ravaging the country, and the Supreme Court just said, okay, all your concerns are thrown away in the event of an epidemic, and that's been really the law of the land since 1905. So, you know, and this is the reason we can always argue these cases. In other words, wait a minute, I got to show my vaccine card, hence there's a HIPAA violation. But really, the real question is, do you have to show your vaccine card? No, you don't, but then you just lose your rights. In Italy, where I was at, Mark, here was the rule. You show your vaccine card. If not, out the door you went. Okay. There they had they had a pass. Okay. You had a vaccine pass. If you don't have it, out the door you go. If you want to travel on a plane, you got to wear the mask, you got to have your vaccine card, and you have to do a test, or you don't. You forfeit the right to be on the plane. So it's not like you're losing your life, maybe losing a certain amount of your liberty because you're not doing that. But this goes all the way back to like smallpox. I mean, and there are a lot of diseases out there, and this is the attempt to eradicate those diseases. Well, Sasha, good you're able to join us. I can't even tell you why our link doesn't work, but I also tell you that
Happens.
Twitch has emailed us several times to say we're not broadcasting on Twitch. Not that that's a big distribution source for us, but sometimes these links break down. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter,
Yes.
but not Twitch because Twitch broke down, and Twitter may have broke down too. Sometimes these social media places break down. A good conversation yesterday about Kyle Rittenhouse, I thought. I think he's not here, so now I can praise him. I'll never praise the guy in front of himself because his ego get too big. Shaquille made a valid point. Okay, what are you going to do if you go to a place like that and you don't have a gun and somebody starts beating you up? Okay, for me personally, I don't go to places like that, so it's irrelevant. But if I did and I didn't, I would feel pretty stupid because some guy comes with a skateboard or remember the other guy had a gun. One guy actually had a gun. Okay, the other guy beat him up with a skateboard, and the other person was just going to punch his lights out. Okay, so the thing is, what do you do now? Of course, there's an argument that the gun itself provoked these people to attack him. Remember, these are all convicted felons. You know, so what you're doing is you're playing with fire to begin with because you create a bad situation. But what happens if you did decide to go to an event? And wouldn't it be stupid if you didn't bring a gun? Now I know you're in Canada, so I don't have all these issues. But the United
Yeah,
States, well,
I'm wrestling, and I just can't understand one detail. So the one and another one convicted felons
mhm.
seeing a youngster, an ugly youngster with a gun, and they don't kill him. They just punch him or something.
Well,
I just don't get
it's
that.
because two of
Why
them didn't have guns, Sasha. See, the thing is, those other
they
two.
could they could kill him with bare hands,
Well,
with
that's what
one
they tried to do.
finger,
Okay,
if
wait a
needed.
minute. That's what they tried to do, and he shot him. Okay, so
So,
one
so,
guy
so they were not skillful enough.
obviously not.
That's why they're dead,
Right, obviously.
because they are not skillful enough. So they could not appreciate the pros and cons of having a youngster with a gun. So
Sure.
what are your chances to actually go and kill him? And you have to kill him, because if you're not going to kill him, he's going to kill
He'll
you
kill you.
because he
Well,
has
look.
a
Okay,
gun.
this is just for me personally. Okay, if I see somebody downstairs running down our street with a a semi-automatic weapon, I am not going to approach them, period. Okay. In other words, the thing is, that is a recipe for disaster. Why these people approached them to begin with, I don't know. I would pick up the phone and call the police. If this happened too often, because I used to have, I must have had 10 in one of my homes when I was in Florida. We had a summer home and a winter. We had two homes. So I grew up in a place where I had two homes. One was on 10 acres on a lake. It was pretty nice. The other was in town. Okay, the one out 10 acres on a lake, we had, we had 22 semi-automatics, I had 45s, I had 357s, I had shotguns, I had all sorts of stuff to basically go out and raise cane. Okay, but since I got rid of it, because the thing is that place became more gentrified, too many people, and if you started shooting around, you could kill somebody, basically. Blah, blah. All right, if that happened too often and people started running up and down my streets with semi-automatic weapons, I would rearm myself. I know how to shoot guns. I mean, I'm not a guy in the diner when it comes. I know even how to handle it. I had people that came over to my place that said, "Oh, yeah, no guns." Almost every one of them was like the prosecuting attorney that had no clue how to handle a gun. Sasha, it was really, really poor. Okay, but now the thing is, what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't approach the person that's carrying a semi-automatic weapon. That's a recipe for disaster.
Nick, that's just insane to approach somebody if they got a semi-automatic, and if they're walking towards you, I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. I'm going to
there you go. Right. Yeah.
a place to get away from
your
them.
Your choice is fight or flee. If you don't have a weapon, you flee.
You
and
flee totally. You totally flee,
and
you, like I said, and you might go flee to some place where you can get something to counter whatever they've got, to come back to Sasha's point and everything. But earlier this year they did say that more people that the gun violence has gone up slightly. I think that they said it's risen in terms of gun violence this year versus last year. And actually, New York became the first state to declare an emergency to tackle the increased level of gun violence. And they had some extra funds for programs aimed at preventing shooting. And that was under then Governor Cuomo earlier this year and everything. And of course, President Biden has said he wants to tackle this issue as well. I was doing a little bit of research, and I was actually surprised to find the fact that's a legal fact, which I did not realize. And I was doing a little bit of research on this issue. And apparently, while violent crime has been up this year, and it was actually an issue that is very prevalent, most of the majority of crimes that are being committed are actually what are considered property crimes. So the vast majority of the crimes, and it's actually by a large amount, the differences and everything, are actually property crimes where there is not a threat of violence. It's like larceny, it's like other kind of things, but they're not necessarily bringing guns in. I mean, they might be robbing it, but maybe they're grabbing the thing and just walking out, or however they're doing it, but they are not having a violent threat, because apparently it's the threat of bodily harm is what the government and other agencies describe as violent crime. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, and whether violent crime is going to rise or whether it's going to taper off, because it does seem like it was trying to be a little bit of a leveling off to some degree as well. Is violent crime a big issue in Canada, and do y'all differentiate between violent and property crime there, Sasha?
Don't understand the question.
Like when the Mounties go get somebody in terms of the police and things of that nature, does there like a lot around here? There's a lot of discussion around whether a crime is strictly violent, meaning that it's like a murder or something, a robbery that might actually be the store owner being threatened by a gun, or whether it's going to be a more property-oriented crime, like maybe somebody vandalizes your car, or they vandalize something else, or even property, but they're not necessarily threatening your life. And I was just wondering, there's a big issue around here in the U.S. They make whole statistics about it, and I was wondering if it's as much of a push there or in some of the other parts of the world that you have been to.
I think I answered your question yesterday, and more than once. First shoot, then ask the questions. That's a rule. This is why these two people are dead, because Rittenhouse killed them because he could, number one. Number two, he had, of course, semi-automatic pistol, and the deceased two convicted felons, believe it or not, they didn't have the weapon. So,
Mhm.
so this is why if they had a weapon, they had an equal chances, maybe even some better chances. So they could kill Rittenhouse, get a good lawyer, and get acquitted, and would go on with their life, and they could eat a nice beefsteak, go to Italy, go to London, just enjoy themselves, enjoy life. But they were stupid enough not to have guns and approach the guy with the
Oh God.
semi-automatic. Oh my God, I haven't heard about more stupidity than this. So he just punished them for their stupidity. This is why he got acquitted.
No,
First
that makes
shoot, then ask the
no,
questions.
yeah, and stupid is a big issue throughout the United States. I will agree with you on that and everything. This is a question I've got for both of y'all, and it's actually going to come back to something else that we've talked about on the show, which is economics. And I guess I'll direct it to Sasha, since he's the one who does our investment show, Jerome Powell, and they're giving him
Yeah.
credit for guiding us through the recession that we're in and implementing the stimulus and all of that. And he's been nominated for a second term as the chairman of the U.S. Central Bank. Should we care as common citizens? And also, is he the right person for the job? Because apparently they're trying to give him credit for what he's done with the economy as we've been going through this recession caused by the COVID-19. But I was just wondering, should they have gone elsewhere? But they did nominate him for a second term. Is he the right man for the job?
Do you know anybody better?
Well, I mean, they were trying to say that there were some people that wanted.
Maybe he is not the right man for the job, but I don't know anyone who is. So you might as well keep the same. That's what I think.
That makes sense. What do you think, Nick? I mean, they're giving him credit for doing great work, but we're still in the middle of like this supply chain economics and
Yeah.
everything. So, were you surprised that they nominated him for a second term?
No, actually, I'm not, because the thing is, like what Sasha says, who else are they going to get? I don't know, And the Federal Reserve has done probably as good as you can through this epidemic to keep the economy going. So I don't know who else is going to take his place. I believe by February, that President Biden is going to have to make a decision. So we'll see. Don't know.
Well, there's a big event that happens right after Thanksgiving, and it's called Black Friday. And apparently, one of the stores that is a major part of that has decided that, it used to be Black Friday, and then there were some of the stores that would really start their sales on Thursday. But Target, which is a major store, has announced that it's not going to open its stores on Thanksgiving Day, making permanent a shift to the unofficial start of the holiday season that was suspended during the pandemic. Because definitely, in the past, Black Friday would be the one that would come immediately after Thanksgiving, but there were stores like Target that would, and actually Target might have been the only one that would actually open on Thanksgiving Day, and they were like, nope, that's all right. We're not going to do that anymore, and things of that nature. What is your thoughts about these kind of like super sales that happen right after Thanksgiving in general? Because I know that even some of my own family goes there and goes a little bit on the we got to get our items kind of attitude, and started hitting the stores right after I want to say they mostly go on Friday, even though I did have some relatives that worked on some of those stores back in the day, and I remember them complaining that they had to go and open those stores, including I think one that might have worked at Target.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a big sales day. I mean, the thing is, they call it Black Friday because companies that are in retail, Mark, they don't make a profit until that day, when actually they sell a lot of goods during that time. So this Friday is the biggest selling day of the year. And then on Monday, they call it like Internet Monday or something, Web Monday or something like that, because
Cyber Monday, I think it's called.
yeah, right. Because on Monday, then people start buying things on the internet, and part of it is because they go in the stores and what they're looking for, they can't find. In other words, there's a supply chain issue, or you're looking for a specialty item, you just can't find it. So on Monday, there's a big push up in sales there. So all that should take place. I'm actually betting on it, Mark. I bet on it by doing like what Sasha does. I bet on the market. I attend his great show, Modern Investing, which is on Wednesday. I don't think I've got a commercial on this, but I do have like I said, I do have a commercial on the other one. But the thing is, I actually bet on it by purchasing stocks that would be, something that would be into the retail sector. Now, the real problem is if you buy a stock now in the retail sector, let's say Macy's. I'm going to pick on Macy's because I actually like Macy's. When do they report their profits? It probably won't be till first quarter. And then Wall Street being reactive goes, oh, Macy's is profitable, and the stock goes up. So what I'm doing is I'm actually waiting until those reports come due. Then I'll probably get rid of it. But that's just me. You know.
Hey, Sasha, they were saying that U.S. holiday sales in November and December rose 8.2% last year from the previous year, of course, with the pandemic. And that was according to the National Retail Federation. But they're saying that this year they're actually expecting it to shatter those records. And they're saying that it could grow somewhere between 8.5% and 10.5%. So are you expecting that kind of good return from people doing holiday shopping? Or do you think that they're being a little bit overly optimistic?
Well, I think that there should be, of course, a lot of activities during this holiday shopping. How it will be reflected in stock, and I agree with what Neil just said previously. Generally speaking, I'm not a fan of retail stocks, except one, which is Costco. That's the only
yeah, Costco.
Well, that's the only one I understand.
Yeah, Costco. I knew the CEO. His name was Jim Senegal. We almost did some work with him, but we never really finished it. Then he retired. They started out at Issaquah, Washington, which wasn't too far where I was living, and they were slowly developing their stores with their profit center being their dividend is basically the management fee that you pay, or the membership fee that you pay. That becomes the dividend, everything else. And then they were really very well structured. The markup's no more than 14% from the buyer. And then frankly, they do some sort of quality control, Sasha, because all the goods I buy are good from Costco. When I bought things overseas, they're not so good, which I got hooked on recently. Also want to do a shout out to Sherry Burrell, who's saying good morning from Beverly Hills. She's actually coming in through LinkedIn.
And she's coming into
whoa, Mark just went. Anyway, she's coming in through LinkedIn, and also Gabe Liel, also shout out from LinkedIn. It's interesting to see LinkedIn because since we're broadcasting on LinkedIn, I wanted to share. I got to move over to the events that took place two days ago with LinkedIn, because a lot of people are not familiar with actually what happened on LinkedIn, which I think was kind of bad.
I was just gonna say, I think I got cut off. We were having one of those internet moments and everything. But I was just saying that Sherry is actually a regular fan of a lot of our programming.
Oh, really?
Actually,
well, you're heavy
out of Beverly Hills.
Yeah, well, you're heavy on LinkedIn, Mark. Like I said, you got me addicted to LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn. I have 12,000 followers. But so with 12,000 followers, here's what I did. I posted a question on Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay. This was like I think it was when Sasha called me, no, Alexander's, what happened was Shaquille called me Friday saying, oh, Kyle Rittenhouse just got acquitted. So I posted a question, should he be acquitted, yeah or nay, or should he walk? Well, here's the answer to it. First of all, within 4 hours, 55,867 people reviewed the poll question. 1,975 people said, let him go, 82%. No, not 18%. And then what happened was the debate was banned on LinkedIn. LinkedIn pulled it down. That's the first time I've ever been banned from LinkedIn. Okay, now also the thing is when the LinkedIn viewers look at this, 32% should say it should be banned. In other words, you shouldn't even talk about Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay, shouldn't even talk about it. And not only that, we found this very interesting. There should be no debate at all on LinkedIn. So, I just found it fascinating to see the what I call the cancel culture, that if we're not debating it, we're leaving it to major media to debate everything, which how unbiased they are.
Oh, yeah, they're totally unbiased. Like I said, that was part of the issue that we were talking about when I was talking to Tula. That'll be the guest on the show this evening and everything of that nature, or this afternoon, I should say. But, you talk about banned items and everything. Sometimes the social media people can also get into some interesting situations as well. Because I know that you're a fan of some things that we're not on yet, because we've talked about it on some of our Media Monday shows like Instagram and TikTok. But apparently there is a TikTok user named Bailey, and Sasha might find this interesting. She is definitely has a typical, more traditional marriage, a Christian marriage, and everything. And she wrote on her TikTok rules that her husband and her have with their marriage. And apparently, some of these rules are making people angry because, first off, she revealed that in her idea, the couples and just couples in general should have no friends of the opposite. She also wrote that this extends to the workplace and they don't let each other be around the opposite sex alone either. And she said finally that they ban texting the opposite sex without the other knowing. So definitely that's just some of the things that she was talking about. And she also added in a follow-up video that they should ban porn and lusting after the opposite sex as well. I don't know how much of that's going to actually happen. And the big rule, according to her, is that they always put each other first, even above their parents. I've actually had that conversation with some folks that I've been involved in the dating space. And I don't know that I always agree with that one either, but definitely was wondering in general, both of y'all are married. Do y'all have these rules that your significant others can't have friends of the opposite sex? Because apparently that's what Bailey, who is a TikTok star, is proposing and advocating for. And by the way, Nick, her video racked up over 600,000 views, and it's caused a whole lot of debate.
Really? Wow. I mean, that's pretty good. And that's all on TikTok?
TikTok.
Yeah, but I thought TikTok didn't allow long programming.
They have changed that. They have actually allowing a little bit longer programming. I don't know that they allow full, like hour-long and 30-minute long shows, but they have definitely expanded what's going on. And I'm trying to get us on TikTok because on the expo that I was just talking about, I met Olivia, who is a TikTok influencer as well. I might try to talk to Bailey about getting her on as well because we like different views.
Yeah, well, we don't have any such rules, but see, questions like that also have a large amount of human interest. So that's the reason, of course, they could have 600,000. But when it comes to distribution points, like I said, we distribute through Facebook, LinkedIn. And by the way, when the minute I put it on Chess Nation, Sasha, hundreds of people show up. I mean, apparently you got a big following on Chess Stars on Chess Nation. I thought that was pretty cool. But the thing is with the distribution points like Facebook, if you look at Twitter, they're morphing more toward looking like Facebook. Okay, Twitch is doing the same thing. So is all the other what I call distribution points. Ultimately, Mark, the distribution points may start looking like each other. In other words, there's going to be one model there. Right now, LinkedIn looks different than Facebook. But what happens over a period of time, watch, they're going to morph and start adding more of the tools and features that Facebook have. And Facebook's going to add more of the tools and features that LinkedIn has. And the distribution points are going to be looking the same. I found that on Twitter, because when I go to Twitter, I go, am I on Twitter or Facebook? They're starting to use the same type of tools and they're starting to look a lot like each other. So it doesn't surprise me that TikTok starts morphing over to look more like everybody else, And our strategy is to, of course, be on all the what I call distribution points or platforms, because the thing is they're open-ended. And when I say they're open-ended, as you know, that's not true. They're, in other words, open meaning that, you can put your content on. You can put your content on until they don't like your content, then they just throw you off.
Which is why I'm going to put that.
Which is what happened in LinkedIn the other day. And so every time I distribute to LinkedIn, I'm going, okay, we're distributing LinkedIn. That's good. They haven't thrown us off yet. Okay, but if they don't like what we say at some point in time, you never know when you get thrown off.
Which is why I'm going to put that survey on our LinkedIn channels and the rest of our channels, because maybe we'll get some interesting LinkedIn views as to whether spouses or significant others of one gender or the other should allow their significant others
actually that would be a good poll, Mark. In other words, thing is the poll questions. Now I got the poll questions from David Grasso, who should be on Media Monday later on today, and he said that I believe LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. Notice everything's owned by some major tech company, and they're pushing their poll questions. In other words, you have somebody behind the scenes that is pushing the buttons, and that's one reason we had 55,000 people within a couple hours, because they're behind it. But then if they get too many views, I went through their terms of service, and they go, "We can shut you off just because you have too many views." I'm not kidding. In other words, they go, and when we got 55,000 people within a couple hours, then they go probably, oh, 55,000, that's too many views. Boom, shut them down, baby. And
Yeah,
they
I
shut it
know
down.
we've only got a few more minutes, but I do want to get to one other issue that's a global issue that we said we were going to talk about and everything. And it actually comes back to Sasha and things that I know he is passionate about as well as part of the region that he used to come from. But the Polish Prime Minister Mateusz, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, warned on Sunday that the migrant crisis on the Belarus border may be a prelude to something much worse. And he was actually arguing that the Poland's border guard said the Belarusian forces were still terrifying or ferrying migrants to the frontier. And apparently the European Union is accusing Belarus of flying in thousands of people from the Middle East and pushing them to cross into the EU and NATO members, Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, in response to European sanctions. So I'd love to learn more about this. I know we're always hearing about what's going on in Latin America. And of course, we talked a little bit about what's going on in Poland and Belarus. And you definitely haven't come from that area, would know better than us. So I would love to know more as to how there is a parallel between what's happening in Latin America and what's going on in Poland, or if there are any parallels at all, because apparently there was even folks that are being shuttled from other parts of the world.
There is no parallel whatsoever. It's the same thing. Like you would compare, for example, the Shakespeare and Tchaikovsky, for example, and would try to figure out who is better, Shakespeare or Tchaikovsky. It's a very difficult proposition. So there's no absolutely nothing in common of what's happening there. What's happened in the Belarusia affair, immigration affair? It's not even an immigration. It's a terrorist action orchestrated by Lukashenko together with Putin as to bring countless, tens of thousands people from Middle East, whoever would like to find their way to the West, and all Middle Eastern people, they all want to come to and live in Western Europe. So to find people who are willing to do that is not too difficult, but they were skillful enough to offer a proposition that for anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000, depends on hotel accommodation and whether you fly business class or regular economy or so on. Anyway, so the packages are made readily available. So they were flown from Iraq mostly, some from Syria, but I'm not even sure if flights were originated in Syria. Maybe there are some Syrian people, but they first had to go to Iraq and fly from Baghdad. Most of the flights were from Baghdad, but there are people also from even countries of North Africa, probably even from Iran or Afghanistan, but that's minority. Most of the people are Kurds. Kurds live in the Turkey region, Iraq, and Iran. It's separate nations, have their own language or so on, but they never ever had some kind of a country with a government or so on. Never. So they are always parts of this countries over there. So people were flown to the border. First, they would come to Minsk. From Minsk, they were buses that were taking them to Grodno, which is very close to the border. And from there, they were taking to a zone where on one side there is a Polish border and the other side is a Belarusian border. And they were told that there is no way for you to come back to Belarus. That's not an option anymore. So you have to do anything, whatever possible and impossible, to cross the Polish border, fight your way through. Maybe half of you will be killed, but another half will make it. And then from Poland, you'll make it to Germany and elsewhere. So this is the plan. So, and they picked up Poland. They didn't pick up, for example, a country like, could be maybe a Czech Republic, although there is no border with Czech Republic. Maybe Hungary, but there is no border with Hungary either. So, but you see, if they would pick up a Czech Republic, for example, their fate would be much easier because Czech would not fight like Poles, and
Right.
saying that the Czech Republic is for Czechs only. Not at all. They would play a part of that they are part of European Union. There are considerations of humanity or so on. They have to help them. Maybe they will ask European Union to help them to help this people. But Poland is a different story. They said that strangely enough, I don't know if everybody agrees with that, anybody has problem with that. They announce, strangely enough, that Poland is for Poles only. Is it something highly unusual? Is it highly controversial? How you treat that that dogma that the Poland is for Poles? Is it ridiculous or is it right thing to do?
Well, if you look at it from a country standpoint,
Yeah.
the country has the right to determine who's going to go into their country or not. So if they want to keep the country the way it is, hey, then that's their right. It's just a lot like, do people have the right to say, well, I don't like my house, so I'm going to go to Sasha's house. I'm going to bang on his doors, push on his doors, and flop there. Okay. And the answer is no, you don't. Well, my house is not doing so well, so I'm just going to go to Sasha's house. So I mean, that's the real problem.
But Nick, then we have these same kind of conversations in the past. Because I mean, if you study the presidents, there were certain presidents that were definitely more isolationist than others, and there were some that wanted to do more of concentrating on
Yeah.
things in
Right.
the U.S. and not necessarily pay attention to what was going on in the rest of the world. They wanted to concentrate strictly on what was happening in the United States. And along those same lines, historically speaking, there have been countries, not just the United States, but other countries that have seen an issue and have tried to manipulate the issue for their success. And because of the pandemic, we're not having as much of that. But I'm gonna give an example. About a decade, maybe a decade and a half ago, there was a country that still has some issues and everything, called Venezuela. And Venezuela actually reached into some of the poor American households, and particularly some of the poor minority communities, and were actually, offering like subsidies to help these particular groups and everything that had to do with oil because of the surge in energy prices at that particular time. So they were actually offering subsidized heating oil in order to alleviate that problem, but also I'm sure to create a little bit of tension between the U.S. and those within the U.S. Because if you're getting the oil from a foreign country versus getting it from your own country, you might start having some second thoughts about what's going on in your own country. Just my own quick thoughts, and I'm sure that's what Chavez was thinking when he did that. Any thoughts? Oh, Nick bounced off again. I don't know where Nick went.
Okay. Well, listen. This is a different issue from what we discussed, I guess.
No,
Anyway,
I'm sorry, Sasha. I was just saying. I was agreeing really with what you were saying, which is definitely that a lot of times we countries, I think that they have the right to be that kind of attitude of that they want to be more concentrated on what's going on in their own nation, their own world, and don't necessarily want to invite everybody in. Whereas the U.S. has always had this kind of attitude. It's kind of like what the whole Statue of Liberty is about, and that whole "bring us your huddled masses" quote and everything. So I think that different countries have different attitudes and also at different times. So I'm not surprised with all this going on in Poland that they would have that kind of viewpoint of we need to concentrate on what's going on here. I think Switzerland might have even done some similar kind of thing. So I'm not surprised when countries take this attitude.
you see, there is a great difference between Poland and the United States. One of them being that U.S. is a country for immigrants. It's built by immigrants. It's immigrants' country. Poland is not. Poland is very homogeneous society, which is dominated by, of course, people of Poles nationality, same religion, which is Catholic Christian, same language, of course, Polish language, same culture, same history. So there's a very homogeneous society in almost every sense that you may think of, and influx of people from different nationality, different culture, different language, different race. What is it for? Why do they really need it? Of course, they're standing 100% against that. They don't want that. And they have the right to do what they do. So apparently, they were fighting this influx of people. These people, I even don't know how you call them. You call them would-be immigrants. You call them the tourists. You call them, because obviously they had means to buy a package which consists of airfare, the hotels, the transportation, and so on. So okay, tourists maybe. They don't need them.
Yep. I can understand countries having that view. We're at the top of the hour, so we're going to end. We've actually got a couple of spots of some of our other shows, including our New Year's Eve special. So I might run those, and then of course go to our lovely other one that gets us on out of here, which is those lovely people skedaddling around, not as much as they did before the pandemic, but hopefully we'll get to that image where people can be doing as much hustling and bustling as we see in this video. But right now, I think I want to bring up the video just because it's on this side where Nick left me, of our own ad called We've Got News and things of that nature. And I might bring up some of the other ones as well. But on that note, with those particular spots, we're going to get on out of here. We'll be back here on Tuesday and Wednesday. And of course, we're taking off Thursday for folks to get to that turkey and hang out with their family and all of that. Sasha, always glad to be here with you. Always glad to spend this time with you. I don't know if you're going to be bouncing over to Economics Monday, but if you are, they'll see you.
I don't have a link, sorry.
All right. Well, I may have that one. If I do, I'll send it to you. But if I don't, then Nick will run it over there. But I think it might be on this side. And if I've got it, I will gladly send it to you. But I know I'll be on Media Monday. But definitely look forward to seeing you on tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
They said I should give it up, like that just ain't good.